Introduce the last project, which is slab mass. So this is your last way to learn how to hand build. So we learned pinch, coil, and now it's slab. Of course, we are at home, so things are going to be slightly different. So you're going to need your clay bag out and your planning. This is the final plan for mine. I'm going to make like a 2020 tribute mask, just, you know, with COVID symbols and stuff like that. Like toilet paper, Lysol, hand sanitizer. But that's all applique stuff later. Today we're just gonna do the first step, which is making your slab. So what you're gonna need out is your last block of clay. So I told you guys to all save one block of clay in here because this is gonna be your final project. Take it out. I'm actually gonna cut a little piece of this off just because I know I'm going to need to make one for my mask down here. I'm gonna need a pretty big piece to make a flat piece for my slab mask. So I'm gonna just cut a small piece off. This is not required by everyone. You guys aren't all going to have to do this. This is just for my specific project. So if you're gonna need an extra piece of clay that's going to be large, go ahead and cut off a little chunk so that way you have it. But you guys are gonna have scrap clay. You have all of this clay and stuff like that if you're doing smaller things. But since I need a piece of clay to cover a full face, like a real mask, I need that little block of clay. However, I still have this huge chunk of clay to use. Okay, so this is gonna be kind of loud, so please be mindful if your adults, families, siblings are working from home. Maybe don't do this until they're done working or out of class. But the first step is we gotta make this flat, okay? So a slab is a flat piece of clay. It's laid out, it's been rolled out traditionally. If we were at school, you'd use rolling pins. So we gotta take this cube and make it flat. So the best way to do that is honestly to just throw it. So just throw the clay around. You're just going front to back, front to back. We're not doing all the sides, just front to back, okay? So I'm gonna throw it. It's gonna be a little loud. Pick it up, rotate it, and then throw it on the other side. And you're gonna wanna do this until it's kind of like a pancake. Don't be, you know, if you're gonna be real gentle with it, it's gonna take you a little bit longer. You gotta kind of get some strength in it and throw it around. Okay, that's better, sorry. All right, so after you throw it around, you're gonna have this flat little pancake looking piece of clay. This is still not I guess this might be a slab, but what we're gonna do now is roll it. So in your guys' brown bags, you should have a little piece of pipe. This is a piece of PVC pipe, it should be hollow. I cut these with the saw so the edges might be a little frayed, so just be careful, you don't wanna accidentally like poke yourself on this. And this is going to be in place of our rolling pin. So traditionally in school, I would have rolling pins for the class that you could use. But of course, I don't have enough of those to give out to everyone. So we're going to use this. And you're just going to use it the same way as like you would with a rolling pin, essentially. You're going to just use your hand and go over it like this, and it's going to flatten the clay and move it around. Make sure you're doing this on top of your newspaper. You don't want this all over your table. I'm gonna move it to this little corner down here, and I like to stand so that way I can get some body weight into it. And all you're gonna do is just try to flatten this piece of clay out. So you guys can probably see it slowly getting longer. I'm gonna move all the clay. Okay, then I'm gonna pick it up and rotate it. That way it gets longer, wider, not just longer. The goal when you're rolling a slab, especially at home when we're not here to make it as even as we can, is to use the same amount of pressure but you want this to be as even as you can, okay? So in the center here, it's a little bit thicker. You can kind of just tell how uneven it is. I'm trying to make it even everywhere. So I'm gonna keep working on this until I feel like it's pretty even. I can tell in the middle here, there's a lot more clay, so I'm just trying to work out these middle chunks here. And again, I have to stand to put a little bit of body weight into it to move it. And then don't be afraid to pick it up and rotate it if you need to. But I'm just trying to make it as even as I can everywhere. You don't want it too thin and you also don't want it too thick. Don't do this directly on your table. You don't want that dry clay to sit on your table. But you also might get this stuck to your table if you do it directly on it. So that's why I do it on the newspaper. All right, so I have gotten it fairly even all the way around, and this is what it looks like. So that's about the thickness of it, and that's the width of it. So we took that block of clay and we turned it into a slab. So if you got this far, congrats, you officially rolled your first slab, which is awesome. So now what we're gonna do is cut out our mask from this. So I asked you guys to draw your mask fairly large, okay? So I told you to take up the big paper so that way you could use this as your outline. So what I mean by that is I'm gonna lay this right on top of my slab and I'm gonna trace it. I'm gonna get, if I can find my tool, I'm gonna use this tool, my makeshift loop tool. Okay, I like this one because it's not too sharp, so it's not gonna go all the way through the paper. But essentially you're gonna put your design right on top of your slab and you're just gonna gently trace the outline of it. So I will show you what I mean. I'm not trying to push through the paper. I'm not even cutting holes in the paper. All I'm doing is tracing the outline of my mask so that way I can see it on my slab when I pull this up. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Clay is very forgiving. We're always gonna be able to rework it and shape it. All right, so that was it. And then now I have a very, very faint outline of where my little skull is gonna be. All right, and then the next step is to cut it out. So get your paper clip, your bent out paper clip out. And now what we're gonna do is stab directly through the slab and just cut it out. So I'm going all the way through the clay, pushing down to the table. Not hard, not super hard. You don't want to cut through the newspaper and possibly damage your table, but just enough to at least slice through the clay and get your outline done. All right, and then kind of like cutting cookies, you'll pull your outside stuff off, and then now you have your slab mask essentially 50% done in the first 10 minutes of this project. So now that I have my skull, the next steps are going to be cutting out the eyes and then adding all the little details, okay? So super, super simple. You are literally 50% done with this project now, okay? So that's all you missed if you did not get started with us. Pretty easy. The next step after this is to just get your container of water and your little sponge, and you're just gonna smooth out the entire surface, so front and back, but mainly, I don't know if you guys can see, is the sides here. So when you cut clay that's this wet, you generally are gonna get these little clay clumps everywhere. You don't want those on your finished piece. So you're really gonna wanna focus on smoothing out these sides just to make sure to get rid of all those little clay crumbs, okay? Really quick, before we end this, I do wanna show you guys how to store this stuff so that way you can tell. Open up your little project board And you guys should have one more piece of shiny newspaper in there that you can use as a barrier between the plastic, okay? So open that up, pull that side back down, and put your last piece of paper on top of the board. And then you can lay your slab right on it. That way it doesn't stick to the plastic, and that's how you'll store it for this project as well. However, we don't want to get rid of this clay. We still have appliques to add to meet the project requirements. So just cut this up. I like to cut it up into little pieces like this that I can store it with. This is still good clay that you can use for your project. So don't just throw it into a ball and get rid of it. Every time you smush it into a ball, it adds air bubbles to it. And then now you have all of this clay. Since we've used all of our good clay, we can start storing it in here, and then we'll also know that it's good clay because it's in this big bag that's labeled good clay. Give it a spray or two. It does not need to be drenched in here. You don't want to accidentally make it all stick together and then not use it. So just kind of put that in there and wrap it up just like normal. Put that away. And for this, you're just going to put it in your project bag. So grab your project bag, put it inside of there, give it a spray, and then put it away for the day. Okay, and then cleanup's gonna be the same. Make sure to dump your water out outside, clean off any tools you used, and get rid of any clay crumbs that are on here. Store everything back in your bag. Make sure you're taking care of your slip. Definitely add water to your slip right now because we're gonna begin attaching things, okay? So that's the first step. Super easy to get started on this project, but please let me know if you have any questions, okay?